Okay, now for this one, I am going to attempt to do the Kubernetes one. So I just finished doing the demo of the other one. Now, what I want to demonstrate, like after you install your Docker for desktop and you have it running, if you go down here and you enable your Kubernetes, you can have the start local cluster. And so you're making sure that you have your Docker for desktop selected. If you do your start local cluster, as you can see down here, all of a sudden it says, oh, here's my Zoom file from my last recording. So I'm going to call this Docker for Windows demo, which I'll provide. And I'll copy in that directory. But anyways, so here I've started up my Kubernetes cluster. And this actually takes a while. As you can see, this could take upwards of 10 to 15 minutes to start up. So I'm going to pause the video and wait for this cluster to finish starting up. And actually, I kind of lied a little bit. It's still starting up, but what I wanted to show you, since I'm going to do the Kubernetes part, I'm going to close all of the other stuff here. This actually is where Visual Studio Code really helped me. You know, of course, you got a PowerShell window that you could use probably in Visual Studio as well. But I have a file here called Startup App in Kubernetes with some instructions here. Like, in other words, you want to make sure you install Docker for desktop. You can go to basically Docker and download the latest one for Windows or in the Mac, because I have a Mac partition too. You want to enable Kubernetes, which I showed down there just by making sure that you enable the Kubernetes part. Looks like the cluster is actually running, and then I've got some of the other instructions right here on what you want to do. So we run. I actually opened up a terminal, and I've got a PowerShell window, which is really handy. So if we run Kubernetes Get Nodes, looks like we're set to go because we have one node. So this is just like Minikube, but I actually like this a little bit better than Minikube. It just seems easier to start up, and it's faster to start up than Minikube too. So right now, I've got no pods, so I did a kubectl get pods. The main thing here, and which I'll provide, here's where the compose directory really comes in handy. So I used compose with a K. So I installed it. Really easy instructions to install it. You double click on it, and it installs in your path. And basically, once you go, so you can just go to compose.io and install it. And so what I ended up doing was running, and I'll give you all these files so you don't have to do it unless you want to. But I ended up just saying, compose. There is actually a compose. Let's see here. I just like in that directory, I just went ahead and ran like compose convert. And when you do that, by default, it looks for your Docker compose.yml file. So anytime you make changes to your Docker compose.yml file, you can run compose.convert, and it'll actually go through your YML file, and it'll go ahead and create all these other ones. It gets you quite a bit the way there, but as you can see, you still have to make some changes, to your ports and some of the other things in here, which is what I did. I also added a couple of little shell scripts inside of here, like cleanup.sh, a push for my image repository. What do I've got in here? Let's see what we got here. Yeah, I mean, you may actually, this should actually be T-Service. I don't even think I use this one anymore. T-Server or something like that. And in your case, you've got like shoes. You got it, shoes. You can call it whatever. But I was just kind of playing around with my own, so that's why I called it T-Cosa, because I wanted to actually be able to push it up to my Docker hub, and then pull the images down from Docker hub. So, and then you'll probably need to do the same with yours to your own Docker hub, because Kubernetes is going to want you to have a container registry. So having said that, if we take a look at cleanup, you can see I've got these pretty much in the order that I wanted to start these things in here. So I actually want to delete basket dash data and call it basket data. Now in the other course, the service we actually had, it was called basket.data, but I noticed with Kubernetes it didn't like the dot in there as far as a service name, so that's why I went ahead for both the Docker Compose and the Kubernetes. I went ahead and changed the name of that to basket data, so I wouldn't run into that issue. But since I've got nothing running, I can go to my startup.sh, and so here's where I'm actually going to run this, and this is kind of where I like this little terminal. So what I can do is, because of timing issues, what I want to do is run these. So I'm going to highlight that, and I'm going to go to terminal, and you can say run selected text. And as you can see what's going on right here, it's running all of these. So again, this is kind of why I like Visual Studio Code for this. And as you can see, it's going ahead and creating all of this. Now if I say kubectl get pods, you can see we're creating these. They're in the container creating state for a couple of these. This is where I can also say kubectl logs, and you just take the name of this pod right here, just like Docker logs. And if I do a -f, it's pretty much the same thing as the Unix tail-f command. So as you get output coming, it's actually going to stream that. So it looks like for this MS SQL Server thing, looks like we don't quite yet have logging output happening quite yet. So let me see here. Get pods again. We can constantly take a look at the state and the status. And as you can see right here, this looks a little bit better. So I'm going to say kubectl logs. Okay, there we go. So that looks a little bit better. One of the other key things that I wanted you to know, and I have a file called, I think it's links and files. I'm kind of all over the map on this, so I apologize. I'm probably going to put this into the instructions here. So say to install the Kubernetes, which is K8 dashboards. You can actually, let's see what we got here. You can install, let's give me 1 second here to, okay, I am going to include this link here, sir, because I forgot to do that, because I want you to be able to do this relatively easy. So enable Kubernetes, first time, install the Kubernetes dashboard. So what you're going to want to do is go to this GitHub link right here, and then right here, this is that general purpose dashboard. Let's see what we got here. I've already done this. You'll want to run this apply in your cluster. First time only. Okay. So you only have to do this once. So, and like I said, I've actually run this. So when you can actually apply it right here, and it's going to put it in a different namespace for you. Once you run it, it's really quick. Then you can actually, this has got the instructions right here of what I'm actually going to run. So then what you can do is you can run kubectl proxy. So I'm putting this in here for you. Then run Okay, so opening up a window, kubectl proxy. So now it's serving 127.0.0.1. Now, if I run this link, you do the same thing after you. So I'm going to actually run this, and I should be prompted with like a login screen. So let's see what we get here. I get the dashboard. Okay, perfect. This part here is a little bit confusing at first, but what you want to do is you want to select token, and then I have another handy dandy little thing that you can run. Let's see what we got here. If you want to get the bearer token, okay, you could take this command right here to get a login token. You want to run this command here, and again, I can run it in this PowerShell window right there, and then I go to the very bottom, and I just highlight this, copy it, and paste it. After selecting that, just paste it in here. And what do we got here? Did I paste it correctly? Let's see here. Normally, well, that was interesting. That was just kind of a little blip there, but it accepted that. So now I kind of like to use this here to check out some things here. So we've got our Docker namespace. This is kind of cool. I just kind of like to kind of wasting a little time here. I'll get straight to the point again here. So we've got our deployments and our pods here. So we've got 4 running. So let's see here. Looks like these are good here. So we've got our events. So now I'm going to go ahead and run the other pods. So what is the next one that we want? So if we go back to startup, if I go back to my startup.sh, which you'll have, let's see here, I've got my cart deployment. I think it's time to run the token server. So I'm gonna go ahead and deploy both the service and the deployment. So we've got our token server going there. And as you can see, once I executed that, this log scrolled here. That's our SQL Server one. Okay. Now, one of the other things I noticed when I'm doing the Kubernetes demo is, let's see what we got here. Just to be on the safe side, I've noticed I'm going to stop my IIS because when we start up the Web MVC project, I'm using port 80. I just don't want to conflict at all. I'm using port 80 as a service through localhost, so I don't want to conflict with the IIS thing here, so I've stopped that. Ultimately, you probably want to use something other than port 80, but I was just kind of running this example here. So let's see what we've got here. Oh, I didn't create the actual service. So I'm going to apply that, let that run. So now if I refresh my pods, I should see the token 1 show up here. Oh, not quite yet. Okay, so what we've got going on here is, so I've got, this is still kind of running. As you can see, it's still trying to start up the database there. Let's take a look at our services. I've got a token server one here, which is listening on this endpoint so far. So I've got 5 running at this time. Okay, so if I take a look at my logs, kubectl, get pods, and then I could say kubectl logs, and I want to do token server, paste that, -f. There you go. As you can see, it looks like our token server is up and running. So I'm going to pause that, or Control C out of that. The next one I want to run in this list is now the orders, since the order is dependent on the token server. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, and then say run selected text. And so it's going to run both of those. And here I can actually take a look at that. kubectl get pods, and then I want to say logs. Still in the container creating state, so when it's in that state, you're not going to really see any logs on it. So let's take a look at what we've got going on here. Here we go. So it's no longer in that state, so now it's actually running. Now you can actually see it looks like it's going to try to seed up. So we've got our order. See, we've got our events going on here. Okay, very good. And that's what our pods were. Just kind of taking a look here at what we've got going on here. So started the container behind the scenes. It pulled, you can see where it pulled the image. It's setting some things up. It seems to also be seeding and doing some things into the orders database, because I'm seeing this was just scrolling right here. So going back to our pods again. So we're almost there. So now I'm going to go back to my startup and do the catalog, highlight both of those, run selected text. As you can see, it's doing the apply there. And if I refresh, you can see it's this icon right here is in a pending state. So as you can see, it's still waiting to start up. You can take a look at the events that are occurring. Okay, so it's doing its mounts right there. Okay, so it created the container. Very good. kubectl get pods. I kind of like to take a look, go back and forth between the dashboard. So here you can see now we're almost there. Okay, so now it should all be green. It is. We got one more to go. And this is our startup. So for this one, you could actually, you can start it up as a service. If you take a look right here, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I've got this set up as a load balancer. Now I'm starting this up as port 80. But you know, in your other course, you were starting up, I think, port 5002 or whatever. On the Mac, port 80 seems to help. You know, I use port 80 in the Mac. So for in this case, just to kind of show some consistency, I kind of also want to use port 80 here as well. So let's go ahead and start this up. go back to my startup, and you could either do it by starting up the service, or you can actually do it this way. It doesn't really matter. I'll just do it with the expose. So I'm just going to run that. So we're going to go ahead and kick off that deployment. And then I'm going just to create the service with the load balancer front end, which is kind of nice. So it's going to distribute your requests, one of your single requests, to any multiple pods if you have multiple pods scaled, which I could potentially give a demo on that too. Let us go ahead and refresh this. There we go, right here. It's our WebMVC one. Okay, I've got my identity URLs. Let me take a look here. So I'm going to say ipconfig. Actually, you don't even need to do that. I can just scroll right up here. There's my Docker net. Yeah, so I'm just going to pick this one. It seems to be common for me, 192.168.1.4, and that is the reason why I have in this WebMVC deployment right here. As you can see, I've got this identity URL. I noticed if I put localhost :5000 in here, I get that all too infamous cannot open well-known port configuration. It uses that metadata for your identity server. I noticed some other folks in your course were having the same problem, but if I just give it a specific IP, all is well. So, and then here's my regular callback URL. So here's what I'm going to do. It looks like we might be okay. So I'm going to try to run this. This is from that Docker demo right here. So I'm going to just see. Now, this is where I kind of have to stop. What I can do actually is this, though. Let me try to see if this will work. Instead of localhost, if I give it my URL, so I'm just kind of doing this for the first time here. Nope. Okay, it's because my IS is also using port 80, so I'm just going to have to stop that, which may potentially impact this, but we'll see. Okay, so I have actually stopped that. And now, let's see what we got going on here. Actually, I'm having, let's see what happens when I do this. Okay, so I'm using my real IP here. Turns out that this is the URL that I want to use to log in, and so I just basically typed that in and hit the login, and it took me here. My life would have been a lot easier if I wouldn't have used port 80 on this, but you see I'm logging in right now. Give it a second here to log in. I've got a slow machine. I got a lot going on here too, so let me start up and take a look at the, there we go. I'm logged in right here, so I've got my orders, I got me at my email.com, So now if I add this to my cart, you can see I've got something added to the cart. I can add 2 items to the cart. I want to update. And so it updated the cart. Now we want to test out the orders again. I short-circuited that so as not to make it required, just to test this out here. So I can do a pay and place order. Now let's make sure that it updates the orders. And it takes a little bit of time. There we go. So now I can look at my orders and you can see that works. Now I can go back to catalog and I can do this to make sure the filtering. Let's see here. For the carts, there we go. So that's looking good. Okay, very nice. So I did stop my port 80 or my IS there, and it did not impact this dashboard, which is nice. So apparently it's delegating the port 80 in the container. Very nice. So now, as you notice here, we've got basically all of our pods here are deployments. So you have their Kubernetes deployments, which basically it's a one-to-one here for your pods. So let's just say we wanted to have multiple, let's see, carts or catalogs. Let's just say we can scale up. I want to try like 3 here, for example. And you can see now we've got like pods 1 and 3. It just takes a little bit of time to start those up. I might very well want to, yeah, let's see here. I'm just kind of playing around here. I might very well want to have 2 order pods. So let's do that. Maybe I want to have more than 1 UI. So let's see what we've got going on here. Just want to do a scale. Okay. So as you can see, it's doing a refresh. Oh, I thought I scaled that one up. I'm not really sure what happened there. I said 2, and then I said okay. I'm a little bit baffled as to why that didn't update. It might be a little buglet in Kubernetes for Windows or something right here. Let me go back to my pods, unless it was in this dashboard. It's the first time I've ever seen that. Oh, that's why it just took a while to. Oh, it's still creating the container. That makes sense. So that's why it didn't show in my deployment. It's still in the container wait state. I do have a slow machine, unfortunately. So, but you can see now we've got 3 of 3 and 2 of 2. So by the same token, no pun intended, I can say kubectl get pods, and you can see, we'll see all of our pods running here. Takes a little bit of time to run. So let's see what we got going on here. Part of the reason why my machine is running really slow is because I've got 100% CPU. Like I said, my machine is spiked right now. There we go. So as you can see, we've got 3 different catalog services because I scaled it up to 3. We've got 2 different order services because I scaled that up. to 2, and then we've got 2 web MVC services. And I can go down here. I just want to continue. So here I could potentially try to load the screen again. I actually had to close down one of my windows because my machine is running so slow here. It's one of the things, unfortunately, with Docker for Desktop and Kubernetes, like Minikube and this one, it's kind of it's taken up an awful lot of memory on Windows here, which is why I kind of like to do this in Mac. So sparingly, you probably want to use scaling a little bit sparingly if you have a weaker machine like I do. As you can see, I'm trying to bring up the site right there, and it's just taking a while. It'll eventually come up, but I don't want to waste your time. So I can scale this down to try to reclaim some more of my CPU time. So because you won't have this on yours, but because I'm having issues with my disk right now on Windows, I've got like some demons, search demons running. Oh, there we go. That's getting a little bit better right here. It was just running very slow and impacting what I could actually do here. As a matter of fact, you can see it looks like I was running into some issues with the dashboard because we've actually got pods 3 of 1, which shouldn't really happen. But I think it was probably the dashboard is having a hard time keeping up with the resources because I was thrashing right there. So basically, I'm just trying to scale down. Okay, so I just navigated back to this again, this URL, and it single signed me on. But the interesting part about that is you can see that I have 2 order services. Actually, I'm going to scale this order server down and scale up the catalog to 2. So it just takes a while. So it's actually part of the reason why it's saying 2 of 1 is because if you do a get pods, you can see some of the states right here. So you can see I scaled from 2 down to 1, which means one of those is now terminating. But I want to bump up the catalog to 2. Now you can also do this with deployments and replica sets. You can set the replica like inside of the YAML, which is kind of nice. So you can see I scaled it up here. If you take a look at the view edit YAML, here's what I was referring to. You can actually scale up and down just by simply going in here as well, typing that, and then just saying update. So there's more than one way to do this thing here. So you can either just do it through the UI, or you can just do it through the view edit YAML. When I was learning Kubernetes, I kind of like to view and edit and take a look at, the deployment itself and what you can do inside of here. And it's just one of the ways that helped me learn. So anyhow, let's see, we've got 2 catalog services running, or hopefully we're getting there. So if I do another kubectl get pods, there we go. We've got 2 of them right here, and they are both in the running state. And let's see what happens if I refresh this. Okay, so give that a second to refresh. Now, as you can see, I got 2 catalog services, and obviously it's been load balanced to one of them to get our data. So that's pretty cool. So we actually have Kubernetes up and running. I apologize, sir, for the disk problems that I was having. You probably want to take a look at these deployments. I'm going to actually shut this down too and show you what I do there. And what I actually do there is I just kind of run these cleanups. So let's see what we've got here. These are going to be the files that you're going to be really interested in, are the deployment and the services files. Oh, and before I do that, so the services will actually expose the endpoints for each of the pods. And so the services kind of give you that static endpoint as pods are coming in and out of service based on scaling. So behind the scenes, the IP addresses of these pods are going to change on you, but your service endpoint won't change. So basically, pods can communicate to each other through service endpoints as well as the outside world. Now, if you want the outside world to communicate, that's what these external endpoints are. So outside of the world on port 80, like we can come in from our own machine to port 80 as well as to the token server in 5000. So we're exposing both of those to the outside, but internally we're not exposing the catalog or the cart or the RabbitMQ or the SQL server because all we have are the internal. And these internal endpoints are the ones that we actually use in our connection strings behind the scenes. So if you take a look also here in the main WebMVC deployment, these are our internal endpoints, as you can see right here, that we refer to as URLs. And each one of these deployments, let's see what we've got going on here. That's not a good example. So we've got our image going on right here. I'm trying to see where we've got one that may actually be going to our cart. Actually, I kind of think it's probably only our WebMVC one right here that cares about these different values, our internal endpoints. Okay. Also in your connection strings, potentially, you can refer to them this way as well. So like in my basket data, let's see what we got going on right here. Here's one of the things I had to do. So, I've got for the service on the endpoint, I called it basket data. So that's port 6379. In order to connect to that in the code, if I go to the cart, let's see what we got here. As you can see right here, the connection string for that one is also basket data 6379, which is a match on this right here. If we go back to your basket data service, same thing right here, basket data 6379. So let's stop this right now. So what I'm going to do is a cleanup. So we've got all these running. One last time before I say bye to these. So now I'm just going to go and highlight these. Oh, I actually got some of these duplicated. My apologies to you. I definitely was learning a lot while I was doing this too. So I don't claim to be an expert at this, but I thought this was a wonderful learning opportunity to try to take your great course and convert these files over into Kubernetes. And one of the last things I wanted to show you is Compose.io. Let's see. So I sort of cheated. I initially was going to go ahead and take that Docker Compose file of yours and just manually figure out how to convert it one by one. But then I heard and read that a lot of people in the industry are using Compose to actually go from your Docker Compose to Kubernetes. So why not? It actually sped up the learning process quite a bit. There really wasn't all that much to it. Definitely worth a look because it shows you how to do this under Windows basically, and under Mac OS, which is what I did there too. So I went through the Mac OS instructions, and of course, it shows you, there's a nice little getting started right here. This is what I ran. That's at Compose Convert. Also, you have the ability, and I didn't really do it here in this video, but if you don't really want to create these files, but I actually did, but if you don't want to create these files, you can do Compose Up on your docker.compose file. And it's not going to create these files on your disk, but basically it'll go ahead and start up your application here. So that's another option. But I thought for the purpose of giving you all these files, I'd go ahead and convert this, because you may have a situation where others out there might not want to use Docker Compose, or they may not want to have to maintain a Docker Compose file. They may just go straight up into Kubernetes and have their own registry and things of that nature. So that's kind of why I went with this approach here of providing the different convert files. And actually, you get the best of both worlds when you do that, because if you still want to use Docker Compose and Kubernetes, you can still continue to make changes to your Docker Compose file right here. And you see I've got this in my Compose directory. And every time you make a change, all you really got to do again is just say compose convert, and it'll just regenerate your deployment files for you again. But be careful if you did go ahead and make some changes here, which I have. But anyways, I hope this helps. It looks like it probably closed everything down. Yep. So when you do a Kubernetes Git pods, it should say no resources found. Going back to the dashboard. Because I stopped everything, if I refresh this now, I should get this, which is what I expect. If I refresh this, I should get nothing in here except for the plain old Kubernetes service, which I expect. So I got no more pods. I think we're good to go. And then what I can do is kill my proxy. And again, you have to have this proxy running in order to do the dashboard. Let's see here. Is there anything else? I don't think so. Actually, one last thing. Just reiterating again what I'm going to provide. This source is your source code right here from your course. You know, I'll provide also, you may or may not want to use these, like these SH files. These are just my little helpers on the Mac when I was running this. Links and files, that's okay. You can, these two are the ones you're probably going to want to look at: startup app Docker and then startup app Kubernetes. And you're also going to want to grab all of these files in this compose with the K directory, because this contains all the converted stuff that I did to get this to work in Kubernetes. So thank you, sir, for watching. You know, I figure you're probably going to make, you know, quite a few changes to these, but hopefully this gets you going, as it did. And it was my honor to help. So thanks again, and take care. Bye-bye.